Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Jazz Albums Review Series. And today I'm going to be taking a look at an album that legendary vibraphonist Gary Burton released in 1990 on GRP Records that featured longtime collaborator, iconic guitarist Pat Metheny. And this one is simply called Reunion. So, just like in the name, Reunion marked the first time in over a decade that Gary Burton and Pat Metheny played together. And the last time that Pat Metheny played with Gary Burton was on the 1977 recording Passengers, where Pat Metheny was a member of Gary Burton's band as a young musician and was a member of his band for a total of 3 years from 1974 to 1977 and recorded 3 albums with Gary Burton as a member of his band. And after 1977, Pat Metheny would leave Gary Burton's band to start his own solo career and form the Pat Metheny Group with keyboardist Lyle Mays and cementing himself as one of the true all-time guitar greats. And Gary Burton would move on to different projects and various endeavors with a number of different guitarists that he would feature in his band. And during that time, Gary Burton and Pat Metheny had no interaction or contact with each other whatsoever. So fast forward to 1988 at the Montreal International Jazz Festival, where Pat Metheny was the resident host, where a number of different artists would be invited to sit in with Pat Metheny and play a number of different songs. And Gary Burton was invited to play with Pat Metheny. And this marked the first time in over a decade that Gary Burton and Pat Metheny had played together. And after a couple of songs, the rapport was stronger than ever, and they picked up exactly where they left off a decade prior. And the magic was still very much there, and it really showed just how much Pat Metheny and Gary Burton had evolved. Gary Burton, of course, was the long established veteran, and Pat Metheny had really showed how much he had grown, not only as a guitar player, but as a band leader and composer. So it was quite clear that there was unfinished business between Gary Burton and Pat Metheny, and it was inevitable that the two of them would get together and record an album. So fast forward to 1990, Gary Burton would put out the appropriately named Reunion album that would feature himself on vibraphone and marimba, and Pat Metheny, who was kind of in a way like the special guest on guitars, with an all-star band comprised of Mitch Foreman on piano and keyboards, Will Lee on electric bass, and the legendary Peter Erskine on drums. So a true all-star band. And as you'd expect from 5 musicians of this level, nothing but the absolute best, top-notch musicianship and incredible playing from all 5 musicians. And Pat Metheny, in many ways, it's kind of like his show, all due respect to Gary Burton, but he has such a massive presence on this album, and Reunion really showcased just how much Pat Metheny had evolved from the last time that he played with Gary Burton. And I've always looked at Reunion as kind of like an unofficial PMG album, just with different players and Gary Burton added to the mix because of how much of a presence Pat Metheny has. He has this special ability to make everything and everybody around him sound even better than they do already. And it really shows in the music throughout. Gary Burton, of course, on top form as always, with lots of beautiful solos on the vibes. Pat Metheny, what more can you say? He's just a machine on the guitar. He's just an absolute beast with tasty solos and lots of haunting melodic melodies. Mitch Foreman, a great keyboard player, providing lots of beautiful, haunting soundscapes. And another thing that kind of gets overlooked on this album is what an incredible pianist Mitch Foreman is. People always associate him more as a keyboardist, but I tell you something, he's no slouch on the piano. He delivers some very tasty piano solos. And Will Lee, you know, he doesn't really solo on this album, but he provides a very rock solid foundation on the bass, and he's just incredible. You know, he really has a very good presence on this album, and his ability to just fill in lots of gaps with his bass work is just excellent. And Peter Erskine, what more can you say? One of the greatest drummers of all time. He can make anything and everyone sound fantastic, and his history in music is just legendary. From Steps Ahead to Weather Reports to John Abercrombie, you name it, Peter Erskine is a living drum legend. So let's have a look, shall we? So there's the album cover, and there's the guys, and there's the tracks, and a little bit about how this project came together. So a lot of the compositions are not really composed by Gary Burton. So we've got two contributions from Mitchell Foreman. We've got three compositions from Pat Metheny. We've got one Paul Myers composition, two Vince Mendoza compositions, and three compositions from Polo Orti. So quite an eclectic and diverse collection of songs from start to finish, and they're all excellent in my opinion. Not a single bad track whatsoever. They're all great, and here's a little bit more about how this project came together and the history of Gary Burton and Pat Metheny. And there's some production notes as well, and a little breakdown of the compositions. So a tremendous album from start to finish. And you know, as I said earlier, when you've got musicians, especially five guys like these, you know you're going to get the absolute best. So we got the first track, the opener, Autumn, which for me is an amazing opener with great solos from Burton and Metheny, just absolutely beautiful. And as I said, some tasty piano solos from Mitch Foreman. He's absolutely incredible on this album, and I don't think he gets talked about enough on this one. He's really on top form, and Will Lee and Peter Erskine, they're a rock solid rhythm section, and they sound excellent. And then we've got Reunion, another great track as well, which is of course the title track. Absolutely excellent. Brilliant guitar playing from Metheny, tasty piano playing from Foreman, and then we've got the gorgeous Origin with tasty acoustic guitar playing from Metheny. And this track could have easily have fit in with PMG because it's got that haunting sort of style that PMG were always known for. It's just absolutely beautiful. Then we've got Will You Say You Will, which is a Vince Mendoza composition with lots of slapping bass work from Will Lee. And like I said, he doesn't solo on this album, but his bass playing really commands a lot of attention and he just sounds incredible. And Pat Metheny's guitar solo on this one, absolutely brilliant. Then we got House on the Hill, which is another great track as well. Panama is great with some wild guitar synth playing from Pat Metheny. He just sounds like a real shredder on this one, and quite a nice rare treat to hear Burton on the marimba. So hearing the guitar synth wailing away and the marimba as well makes for quite an interesting dynamic. Absolutely brilliant. Chairs and Children, excellent track. Wasn't always easy as beautiful. The Chief, one of my favourite tracks from Reunion, and Time, Pos, Fees, Happy Times, excellent track, and a bonus track as well, Quick and Running. Fast, beautiful, what more can you say? Absolutely amazing, and a great closer for this album. And the standout tracks for me are Autumn, Reunion, Origin, Panama, Chairs and Children, The Chief, and Quick and Running. But the whole album from top to bottom is excellent. And out of all of the albums that Gary Burton and Pat Metheny have made together, I would put this one probably right at the top as their absolute best ever. Passengers is the best album that Gary Burton put out that Pat Metheny was featured on as a member of his band. But I think in terms of like more later projects that they would record together, I'll definitely put Reunion right up there at the top. It's a true masterpiece and a beautiful showcase to show how Pat Metheny has evolved as a musician, and the rapport of Burton and Metheny is just absolutely incredible. So there you have it. Gary Burton Reunion, excellent album and probably their best album they've ever made together from their long collaboration. Tremendous stuff. Excellent. So that's going to be it from me. I'm going to wrap this up now. What's your favourite track from Gary Burton Reunion? Is it Autumn, the title track, Origin, Will You Say You Will, House on the Hill, Panama, Chairs and Children, Wasn't Always Easy, The Chief, Tie and Poss Fleece, Happy Times, or Quick and Running? Or did you enjoy the entire album from start to finish? There's no right or wrong answer. We all have our favourite tracks. You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Jazz Albums Review Series. So until then, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.